There we go. Welcome back. This is Spidey Trainer here with another movie review. You saw the thumbnail, so clearly we'll be talking about the third installment of Venom, the third and last, we'll see, installment of the movie Venom, The Last Dance. My thoughts on Venom so far, with being a part of the Sony universe, or the Venomverse, whatever you want to call it, it's been a little weird for me. I haven't really fully agreed with the direction they decided to take it. Sure, the first movie did great, brought in a ton of money, and honestly, I kind of think that was kind of a fluke. Don't shoot me in the comments, but I think that was kind of a fluke. It just happened to do well. People saw it, and they knew it was bad, but it was like bad for the right reasons, if that makes sense. I don't know. We'll get into it more, but essentially, my thoughts on Venom as a whole, I didn't fully agree with. I saw the trailer, blew my mind, and I was like, holy crap, we're getting a Venom movie back in 2018. And when the movie actually came out, I'm like, this is silly. This is a bit sillier than I was expecting, and it's also PG-13, which I assume with Venom, he'd be a rated R rating easily. They would probably have had more freedom to run with this character. It would have made more sense. We'll get into all that stuff later, and especially, the first movie, second, and then especially the third. That's why we're here today. But before we do, make sure to hit that like button, hit subscribe, and be sure to hit the bell for more notifications on whatever video I have coming up next. So with that said, let's jump into Venom. Thank you, lady. Okay, sorry about that. Excuse me. So with Sony's version of Eddie Brock, Tom Hardy, I thought that Tom Hardy as an actor portraying this role did really well. There was a lot of improvisation for the first movie that he did, especially that lobster scene. But as far as Eddie Brock as a character in this universe with Venom, I wasn't mad at it. It just, over time, they started taking the character in a direction that was just making me less and less intrigued or interested or entertained, really. I didn't really like it a whole lot the further away they took it away from where his origins are supposed to be. And it's going to be really hard to talk through all of this without mentioning the big fat spider-looking elephant in the room. There is no Peter Parker / Spider-Man. Now, if you don't know, this character, Venom, Spider-Man is such a vital aspect of the character as a whole. Without Spider-Man, this character doesn't make sense. So the fact that Sony, oh god, I'm gonna start ranting. But they took these these Spider-Man characters that literally they were created because of Spider-Man, if you think about it. They took all of those characters, made independent films with them, but they don't have the one thing that caused them to be created in the first place. Spider-Man. It doesn't make sense. And okay, so real quick, and I'll try to keep this quick because I'll rant for the whole video before we get into the actual stuff. With Venom, quick backstory with Peter Parker, the symbiote, Eddie Brock, and Venom. Peter Parker, as you know, had the costume, the black suit, got him on Battle World because his suit got damaged on that whole thing during Secret Wars, which we'll probably find out a bit more with Tom Holland's Spider-Man, which will be interesting to see. But he comes back, finds out the symbiote or the suit is sentient, finds out it's called a symbiote. It's alive, and it begins messing up his life, and then the whole church scene with the church bells. He gets the thing off of him, falls down to Eddie Brock. There's this whole thing with Eddie Brock with his story. He finds out that Peter Parker kind of found out that the story that he did was fraudulent or fake. So basically, Eddie Brock gets fired. I'm speed running through this whole thing, so I'm missing a lot of details. But Eddie Brock gets fired, loses his job, something like that. He ends up at the church with the symbiote that falls down, and then Eddie Brock gets the symbiote and becomes Venom. And with that, because of the symbiote that was attached to Peter Parker, the symbiote knows who Peter Parker is, obviously, so therefore, Eddie Brock now knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. The two are combined, so both Spider-Man and Peter Parker, Eddie Brock and the symbiote have something in common at this point. They both hate the same person. Because Peter Parker basically disowned or got rid of, broke up with the symbiote. Eddie Brock was fired because of Peter Parker, because whatever. And so they both, because of the hatred that both of those sentient beings have, the symbiote, Eddie Brock, it makes Venom that much more terrifying and that much more sense. It just makes more sense. There's a threat that when Venom's on the scene, Peter Parker's in trouble. Spider-Man's in trouble. But again, I'll probably dabble on that a little bit later down the road here, but without Spider-Man, it's hard to make this character make sense. Sure, first movie did good, but overall, it's gonna have its problems easily without the vital heartbeat that is Peter Parker / Spider-Man. Okay, that's, I think, enough ranting for right now. Let's keep it going because that's already been like, what, a good 5 minutes talking about that? So let's keep this train moving. So anyway, with the rant out of the way, Eddie Brock, Venom in this movie, when I saw the trailer, my mind was blown. I was like, we're finally getting a serious Venom movie. It looks great. Venom, they nailed the look because of with Tobey Maguire, the Spider-Man 3 movie. Venom was too scrawny and he wasn't as threatening. They kept taking the mask off, so we didn't get to really see Venom's face a whole lot. And then he dies, and whatever. It was a decent movie. Coming from that was the last time we saw Venom in a live-action film, to this, when we saw the trailer, we nailed it at that point. But after seeing the movie, it was just too silly. It gave off the serious vibe in the trailer, but in the actual movie, it was silly. It was like a buddy cop type film with Eddie Brock and Venom, and they're always butting heads, and it just didn't take it seriously enough to where the movie maintained a serious like when it was supposed to be serious, it was hard to take them seriously. I'll put it that way. Venom's taken not seriously. Eddie Brock is a silly character, especially with the lobster scene, which was really good, really well done. But as far as establishing these characters as very serious characters coming from the comics into this movie, the tone was off for me. This is a really tough video to actually talk about because of how far away and far removed they are from the comics. It's really hard to give my honest judgment because they took it in a direction that did okay, but there was so much more they could have done with it. But anyway, Let There Be Carnage, decent movie. But yeah, there's a whole lot I can say about that. But we're not here to talk about the second movie. We're here to talk about the third movie. So basically, Venom 1, good movie. Let There Be Carnage, decent movie. Pass for a Venom versus Carnage movie for what it was. Even before No Way Home happened, we get the scene where he gets transported, but Eddie Brock gets transported to the 616 universe. Sees the news that Peter Parker is outed as Spider-Man, that whole thing, and Venom licks the screen. And so my thoughts are, based on what I know from the comics, I could be a little off here, but symbiotes are multiversal beings, so no matter where they are in the multiverse, they have a hive mind regardless. So they don't have to not be from the same universe to not know what's going on in a different universe. So my theory or thought when I saw that Venom lick the screen with Peter Parker on it was like, Venom, the symbiote, recognizes Peter Parker. But that's not established anywhere else or any time after that. You got that one scene where we get like, oh, Peter Parker, Venom, there's a connection there, but what is that connection? There's no talk about it. You just see it, and you're left to your own devices to come up with your own theories and thoughts about what that may mean. But after that, it's like, okay, nothing else after that. That's more like a wink at the audience, saying like, oh, Venom and Peter Parker, they'll fight one day. Just wait. But then there's no talk or mention at all about it later. That's it. So it's almost like, why did he even have to include that scene? Just for the sake of the audience? We didn't really care. I'm sorry, I can't speak for you all. I didn't care. It was more like, okay, Tom Holland's gonna see this Venom soon, maybe, but I felt, even in that moment, I felt like that wasn't really gonna go anywhere, so why even include it in the first place? But a decent fight scene, good choreography for what it was with the VHS or the VFX, and the biting the heads off. And the fact that when Venom bites heads off, it's because it's PG-13, there's no blood. And I don't want to seem like I'm an advocate for I want to see blood, but it ruins the immersion for me. Because it's PG-13, you got this big hulking alien biting 4 heads off at a time, no blood anywhere. Like, what are these guys filled with? Air? Like, it's really hard to believe that he's actually biting heads off. It's like, oh, that's clearly effects. And obviously all of this is effects, but give it the R rating to really sew into the ground that this is a serious character. I can talk about that so many times, I'm gonna annoy myself doing it. Because it's just like, why didn't they go the extra inch or mile in this case to just make this a character that is correct, that is right. And instead we have this. Before that, actually, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Null, God of the Symbiotes. He's a very serious character. And the whole movie, I know he's trapped, and from the comics, yes, he's trapped on Clintar, which is not necessarily a planet. It's a slew of billions and billions of symbiotes that have him caged. And actually the word Clintar means caged, if you look that up. So it's literally a giant cage for Null, where he's been trapped. They rebelled against him, and he's been there ever since. And he's able to psionically, or because of the hive mind connection, he's able to reach out to other symbiotes and kind of basically do his will through them. And in this case, the symbiotes that do his will are not symbiotes, but they're called xenophages, that are basically symbiote hunters. In the comics, they have nothing to do with Null. Yes, they have nothing to do with Null at all. So the fact that they threw that into this movie just because for the sake of it, it's like, why? Like, people who don't go into the movie, you know, not knowing much about the comics or anything like that, they're probably not going to bat an eye at it. They're probably not going to think that, oh, that's not connected. They're probably, because it makes sense. Like, if I were someone that was unbiased and didn't really read the comics at all, and I saw that, I'd be like, oh, they're just his minions. So it's like, okay, whatever. But did these people do any research? Like, maybe some, like, more than minor research about where this character actually came from? I wonder a lot throughout this whole series. I'm trying really not to sound like I'm smashing or slamming these videos, but I am. Yeah, so we're introduced to Null. We get this whole prologue basically giving a whole bunch of context as to where he comes from, what he needs, and that he wants to be free, and that he needs the Codex, which is created in the comics. It's different, but here it's created because Eddie died and the symbiote revived him, and the Codex was created. So that's basically the key to release him from his caged prison of back on Clintar. So that's what he needs. So he needs Eddie, so he sends the xenophage to hunt Eddie/Venom for the Codex so that he can be free. That's the whole thing, the MacGuffin of the movie, and the thing that we're trying to make sure that the bad guy doesn't get. Okay, so we got the Codex of keep it away from the xenophage, so Noel doesn't get free, and then we have Eddie needs to get to New York, and Venom wants to see the Lady of Liberty. These are the motivations for this whole movie. Nowhere near strong enough to hold the movie up properly to where it makes sense, and to where we can actually be engaged and emotionally invested in the film throughout. But that's what we got. So that's essentially it. So, not long after this, we get a little introduction to the other semi-protagonist of the movie, Teddy. Dr. Teddy. And in the comics, they gender swapped this character, because in the comics it's like Theodore, I believe. I didn't do a whole bunch of in-depth research on this, but I know a little bit. And there's this whole backstory about how she got struck by lightning with her brother, who may actually be the Theodore from the comics, but he was killed, so now it's just the girl doctor now named Teddy. So it's like, okay, a lot of people don't know who this is. Fair. Fine. I didn't know who it was until I looked it up. Whatever. The lightning, which we'll talk about later down the road here, has nothing to do with the comics. They just shoehorned that in because it looked cool or sounded good, and in their minds maybe they thought this ran the plot along. Maybe. But it has nothing to do with the character, so it's something extra that they just threw in there because of it would look cool. I imagine. I could be wrong. So already, this character has very little to do with what's going on, except to be a plot piece later to get the last final end scene in the movie and wrap things up, essentially. So, anyway, so we get introduced to her. We also get introduced to Rex Strickland, who is the other antagonist in this movie that's chasing Eddie Brock and Venom. With this character, he is actually in the comics, but he's a completely different character altogether in the movie. Because in the comics, he actually possessed a symbiote. He was known as Tyrannosaurus, because Tyrannosaurus Rex. That's the joke. But no, he was a really BA symbiote, badass symbiote in the comics, and a really decent. It had a lot to do with Wolverine, Nick Fury back in the day, back in Vietnam, and he had the symbiote. He died, and then Rex actually becomes completely symbiote. So the human of him died, but the symbiote that bonded to Rex actually became Rex in a way in the whole King of Black story, or King in Black, which that whole thing. So, and this is just another example of what I will talk about a little bit more later, about how this kind of ruins any trajectory that would make sense or potentially be a good movie down the road. They're literally shooting these movies in the foot because of the choices that are being made in these movies with these characters. The fact that these movies, and I know that they can only do so much, but if you're going to do comic book movies with characters that are supposed to last issues for years and years, don't kill them off in the first film. Like, leave room for imagination, leave room for more stories. And the key to a good movie, if the story's good, we'll love it. If the story's good and the acting's good, we will love it. If the story's off, no matter how crazy things get in the movie, it's going to diminish any kind of meaning or impact you're meaning to present to your audience. I don't understand. But anyway, they killed off Carnage, which would have played a major role down the road, especially with Null now introduced. They can't do that anymore. Bit his head off. Maybe Carnage is around somehow. Maybe he survived somehow. I don't know. But they bit the guy's head off, Cletus Cassidy, who's supposed to be the ideal Carnage character throughout all of the comics. I think a few times it may have been somebody else. But Cletus Cassidy is Carnage. And he's dead. He's gone. With Dr. Octopus and the old, I'm going way back now, Dr. Octopus, Green Goblin, they killed him off at the end of their movies. And we can't use them again. Of course, we got No Way Home because of the multiverse, so there you go. But you shoot, like I said, shoot these things in the foot, and you can't do anything else with it. And you have all this potential with least licensed characters to go these many different ways that would be so interesting. But because you make these choices to nip these guys in the bud, they're gone. So, oh God, I can't. This is a hard. Sorry guys, this is a hard video not to rant about because it just breaks my heart as a nerd, Spider-Man nerd, whatever. That they're not making these smarter decisions with these characters. You know what? This is just going to be a whole-on, somewhat directed rant. This is just going to be basically a rant about this movie because there's so many things that just but Toxin, Patrick Mulligan, the cop that supposedly died in the second movie. He's apparently alive. He was taken into underground research by Teddy's people to be studied and researched. I think this is where I got a little confused in the movie because I think the symbiote, or he died, but they put a symbiote in him, and he became Toxin. But I don't think his name is actually ever mentioned, but it's supposed to be Toxin because Patrick Mulligan is Toxin in the comics, so that's the connection we're supposed to establish. But even that, like, the color, he's all green. In the comics, Toxin is a character that is literally the child, and I know symbiotes are asexual beings, but there is the child of Carnage and Venom in Toxin, and Carnage wanted to raise Toxin to be a hero, raise him to do right. This is when Venom was the lethal protector, and Carnage wanted to destroy him because he didn't want him to be more powerful than Carnage and potentially be a threat to him later. So then Venom fight it out. I think Venom wins or something like that, and then Toxin is born or manifested in Patrick Mulligan, and we now got Toxin. He's like a combination between red and blue. He looks really cool. Somewhere down the road, he becomes, I think, evil, has to be put down, something like that. So that's that character generally. Just a clean wrap over that. But this is not Toxin. I mean, it was kind of cool. It was green, didn't have any legs. It was more like a snake-type serpent-looking thing. But yeah, they really wasted Toxin. Literally wasted, because later down the road he gets eaten. And it's just, I felt like watching the movie and seeing that happen in real time, I was like a shot to the heart. I was like, oh, there goes another one. Another one bites the dust. It's just gone. He's just gone. Now we can't do Toxin or Patrick Mulligan ever again. He's just gone. And they did that a lot later down the road with these other symbiotes that we'll mention. But essentially, back to Eddie and Venom. We get a little exposition from Venom, basically telling Eddie who Null is and that he's a threat, and that the Xenophage is the wrath of the Codex. So we can't transform Eddie, because if we transform Eddie, the Xenophage is going to track us down and kill us, Eddie. Keep that in mind. So as we're going along here, the big bad six, who are like seriously taken, there's a big tone of that they're really serious and they will kill you and they'll track you down. They're like these 6 elite soldiers and they all get murked. Very quickly. So it's like, okay, where was the weight of their threat? It was immediately diminished by the Xenophage, which, of course, he's a symbiote hunting alien that's basically indestructible, can heal itself, but kills all of them, eats them, and then they come out the back like a saw chipper, or a wood chipper, I mean. So pretty brutal. That's probably, there's my blood. There's the blood. Eddie meets his family, weird interaction here, and I feel like there were a few comical notes in that scene where he meets them that did not land at all. Like I felt like there was a moment where there was supposed to be like joke, laughter, audience, and nothing. It just didn't land at all. So, and that happens throughout the movie a little bit, where they're supposed to be funny or they're meant to be funny, but it's just not at all funny. It's just annoying. Where's Venom? Where is Venom in this movie? Like, sure, Venom's in, you hear his voice, you hear Tom Hardy's voice as Venom, and you see him every once in a while come out the back of his head, because again, they can't transform. So that in itself, they basically shot themselves in the foot with this movie because of that. Because we want to see Venom, but we're not going to get Venom because he can't turn into Venom, because this thing's tracking him down. So now there's a reason as to not transform, whether it's saving money on VFX or what, but there's hardly any Venom now in this Venom movie, which is the last movie, apparently. So, I don't understand those choices. I don't care about this family. Sorry, I don't care about this family. Sure, live their dreams to see Area 51 get shut down. I don't care. I want to see Eddie, Brock, and Venom. That's why we're all in the audience watching this film. We paid money to see Venom and Eddie Brock, but we get this film. Like, why? These writers, man. I don't understand. But anyway, Venom gets addicted to gambling, meets Miss Chen, and yeah. So again, we know that hey, Eddie, if we transform, we will die because the Venophage is super freaking fast and strong and rip us to shreds. So we can't transform. We will die if we transform. Right? Right. So Venom and Miss Chen have a dancing number to, what is it, ABBA Dancing Queen? Is that right? And Eddie's literally like, Venom, you literally said we can't transform or we will die. This thing will, it's like, no, but I want to dance, Eddie! I want to dance! And so they dance, and oh wow, I didn't see this coming. The Venophage hops down through the roof, tries to hunt them down, and they transform back into Eddie. They're gone, but now the new 6, I think they sent out another 6 that they can easily just replace the old 6 with, and they track Eddie down and they find him, they take him in. Also, there's a shadow figure that's kind of hiding in the background, kind of directing the scene a little bit. I have a theory about that actually, not my own theory, but I heard about it and I was like, holy crap, I wonder. So what I heard is that this shadow figure is actually Dr. Dan. Remember him from the first movie? Anne's fiance/husband now, I think? Apparently, it may be him. There was a video that I watched that had the credit, it should basically list the credits out saying that here are the characters that were in the movie. And at the bottom of the credits, you see the guy who plays Dan, but we never see him in this movie. We never see him, but he's listed in the credits. So why is he even in the credits in the first place in this movie if we didn't see him? So I wonder, because when we saw the back of this guy's head, if this whole time Dr. Dan has been running the whole operation. I'll leave that to you. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Now, I've harped on a lot already, a lot of bad, but there was actually some good that I enjoyed, and it unfortunately happened towards the end of the film, in the third act. And because they had all those other symbiotes in containment, we get to see a whole bunch of symbiotes fight. So a lot of them break out, they all lash different randos in the lab, and they become their own symbiotes. So these look like a lot of the symbiotes, or not a lot, but the 5 symbiotes from the comics, they have this whole backstory with the Life Foundation. They did nothing with that here, but we see potential shots of Phage, of Lasher, who is Christmas. In the comics it's a dude, but here it's a woman, whatever. But Lasher, Phage, and a few other like ones that they just kind of made up that were random. There was like a 2-headed one, a white one. People think it looks like anti-venom, but it's not. And then one that has fire powers, which symbiotes are weak to fire, so that was a weird choice, but whatever. This scene altogether I thought was the most exciting, engaging, and I enjoyed it despite how much or how little sense it made overall, or as far as how it pertains to the comics. But I enjoyed it. My heart was racing. I was on the edge of my seat. I'm like, oh my gosh, lots happening. A lot of cool action sequences too. The xenophages are pretty sick. They're brutal. They're literally killing them left and right. Toxin gets gobbled up, like I mentioned earlier, real fast as soon as he breaks out. So that's sad. R.I.P. Toxin. Then the other ones, they just get murked left and right. I think the 2-headed one lasts for a while. And then the fire one gets eaten up and he spits fire and blood and symbiote guts out the back. So he's dead, and then the white one's dead, and then the Phage is dead with the security guard, whatever. He gets tossed out and killed, or he gets blown up by Rex. So there's a lot going on in the scene. The family, unfortunately, is here. They decided to break into Area 51 just to get a nice last peek before they shut it down. And a few other bits and notes where it was some really cool action pieces. And then we get to the part where it's actually the end of the movie, pretty much, where the only way to destroy the Codex is to either have Eddie killed or Venom killed. And so one of them has to make a choice. So there's this quick recap of all their fun times in the past few movies, which is kind of like what they did with Deadpool and Wolverine at the end of the credit scene, where there's a whole bunch of shots with all the X-Men films and all that. Which this one is like, it's like the store-bought version of that, the store brand version of that whole thing, because it's like, okay, there wasn't really a whole lot with them, but okay, a little sad. But it actually was a little emotional. That was probably the most emotional I felt as far as the sacrifice I was about to partake here with Venom. So for some reason, despite all the silliness, I still felt something in that scene, in that moment. Real sad scene, and is it the end of Venom? Maybe, question mark? We'll see. But that's essentially it. Eddie is found in a lab or a hospital or whatever, and this general dude, we don't know who this guy is, just some secret ops, you know, part of the shadow organization or whatever, who knows, but basically exempt from all his past crimes and murders and all that stuff, just exempt, clean slate, so he can go back to New York. Literally just hand wave the whole thing, the whole reason you've been coming from A to B, and the gone, just whatever, you're forgiven. And he goes to New York and sees Lady Liberty like Venom wanted to see, and real sad, and it's like to the song, what was it, Maroon 5, Memories, which was weird. I think that's when the whole flashbacks happened, but anyway, that's pretty much it. We get a few end credit scenes where the mid-credit scene, it's Null basically threatening that I'll be back. That's pretty much it. It's almost like he tried to pull a Thanos when we first saw, when he saw at the end of Avengers, where we saw his face turn to the camera. It was like, oh my gosh, Thanos! Or the one, well, fine, I'll do it myself. That whole thing, remember that? That was kind of this, but just done very poorly. And again, Null, very freaking bad character, like good character in the comics, but like bad, like evil. Very evil character, very powerful character, and they didn't do him much justice in this movie. He was just a voice somewhere in space. And then we see him in the mid-credit scene. And then the end credit scene, we see the guy that got taken in from the bar in Mexico. He runs off, and then we see a cockroach, which was mentioned earlier in the film, that they survive anything. So there's a cockroach that goes to the vial. Oh my gosh, I forgot to mention, I'm sorry, this is a long video, but Agony. Dr. Teddy. This whole lightning thing with her having lightning powers in her, maybe, and she cracks on one of the symbiotes, the purple one, and she now gets endowed with lightning powers and symbiote powers, and she looks a lot like the character Agony. I think she is Agony from the comics, but Agony spits acid, not lightning. This has nothing to do with Agony from the. So why did they make these choices? So at the very last moment, Agony comes up, super speed, saves the human that was Lasher, saves her, zips back, and now there's potential for her being in another film. Maybe we'll see. But it's just like a throwaway. It's like, and we're saved. Thanks, Agony. Like a very quick, cut and dry way to wrap it all up. So anyway, sorry, I forgot about that. But essentially, yeah, that's it. And so there's thought of that cockroach, with how Venom kind of attached to different animals in the previous scenes in the movie. There's thought that the Venom symbiote is going to attach to the cockroach, makes its way to other whatever, and he's going to be alive, and we'll see Venom again someday, somewhere, maybe. Oh my god, that was a long video, I'm so sorry. But that's essentially it. My overall thoughts on the movie, I enjoyed it. I was engaged. When the Venom parts happened, and there was action on the scene, I was engaged. But when it was the stupid family story, and the exposition with the Dr. Teddy with her brother, which we kept seeing scenes of that, which is like, okay, they want us to care, but we don't. We don't know who this is. We have no connection or establishment with this character, so why? And then making her Agony, so the third act saved it for me, honestly, because I was going to get this a really bad score. But the third act kind of brought it home to me as much as it could have. I really wish they took this character in a different direction, a better direction that would make more sense. And again, Spider-Man wasn't even a part of it. So without that one puzzle piece, none of these pieces are going to fit. It's just not. So it's a shame that this had to end with the way, with this character. But hopefully with Tom Holland's Spider-Man 4, which it's been rumored to have the symbiote appear in that film, hopefully they do a better job with that and actually do the symbiote justice moving forward. But that is my review of Venom: The Last Dance. Oh yeah, flip score, I gotta give that. The third act saved it, gave it a 0.5. So 2.5 for me on the flips. Not good, not great. First movie probably did out of 3, but this one, not great. I just don't like this version of Venom. I wanted my comic accurate Venom with some creative liberties here and there, fine. But I wanted that Venom, not this Joker Venom. Joker, last video. Didn't even get a Joker in that Joker movie, which is crazy. Anyway, that's my review, and those are my thoughts on Venom: The Last Dance. What did you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below what you guys thought of this movie. Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it as much as I did? Or did you hate it more than I did? Who knows? Let me know down below. And thanks for joining me in this video. I'm sorry I ranted a lot during this one, but there was just a lot to say, a lot on my mind, and a lot I wanted to get off my chest. Get it? Oh my gosh. Anyway, let's wrap this up. If you enjoy this video and want to see more, be sure to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and be sure to hit hit the bell for more notifications on whatever video I have coming up next. And until next time, stay amazing.